This is Rocking Your Recovery. Rocking Your Recovery is a new series that we're presenting, and it is to profile people in the community who are rocking their recovery. So today we've got Matt McRae, and Matt McRae is right now he works as a peer support worker at the Manitoba Schizophrenia Society. He's a father, he's a writer, he's a husband, and he's rocking his recovery. So I just want to welcome him this morning. Hi,
Hello
Matt.
there. Hi,
Hi.
how you doing?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful.
That is good to know. So, Matt,
Yeah.
I wanted to start with just asking you a few questions about yourself. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and whatever else you'd like to share.
Well, I was born here in Winnipeg. I moved to BC for a while, and there I was in a head-on collision with a semi, and I was paralyzed on the left-hand side of my body. And I moved back to Calgary, Alberta, where I received rehabilitation for my brain injury, and I learned to walk again. I was paralyzed on the left-hand side of my body due to the head-on collision with the semi, and
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
So you were how old did you say?
I was 18, just before my 19th birthday.
And
Yeah, yeah.
then had this collision and this accident and paralysis. That was a pretty big deal, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah. I was at 19, and the doctor told me that I might not ever walk again. And um, I told him he didn't know who he was talking about, talking to, I should say. And a month and a half later, when my doctor, after rehab, asked me if I could stand and walk again, I said, "Heck, I can moonwalk for you," and I did. So, yeah.
So you really surprised your medical people there by overcoming that huge challenge.
For sure, and it wasn't just the walking. There was still a fair amount of issues with the brain injury too, and confidence was such a hard thing, because when you deal with something like a brain, you feel that you have like all those internal fears that you have, that you're stupid, or that you're not good enough, actually have a basis in reality, that you literally have a brain injury and stuff. So that it just amplified the feelings of me feeling just that I wasn't smart enough and not worth it
Mm.
and not gonna make it anymore. So yeah.
So you had to contend with some of that internal stuff as well.
Oh, for sure, for sure,
Now,
for
tell
sure.
me, Matt, had you had a diagnosis? I understand that things happened in a couple of different ways for you. You had that major accident.
Mhm.
Had you previously started to have some mental health issues before that?
Well, I think I had anxiety, and depression for like a long time, but I had I started hearing voices when I was what do you call it, like 17, and yeah, so although I wasn't like per se diagnosed or whatever, I was a voice hearer from when I was 17 until I was 30, 38 or 9. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a
And
long time.
I haven't heard voices for over 4 years now. So
Okay. So
yeah.
take me back to that a little bit when you were 17 and you were hearing voices. Did other people notice that something was going on for you, or did you notice that there was something different, or was this just part of your makeup, what you thought about yourself at the time?
Well, I've, yeah, my mom knew that something was up, and took me to the hospital to get checked out and stuff like that. But the doctors deemed that I was with it enough that they didn't want to hospitalize me. So I think my mom was probably probably looking for help and had nowhere to find it on her end of it. But for me, it made me feel like I was justified in the fact that the doctors were on my side and I wasn't crazy. And I like and the doctors believed me over my mom. So it was pretty scary. So
Okay.
yeah.
And at that time, hearing voices, how did that affect your life, or did it make your life more
Yeah,
difficult? Or
it was hard because at the time I had really friends that were very abusive to me, both physically and mentally. And the voices became a voice of not only the negative aspects of what do you call it, of my insecurities, and as well as also these I became voices of these negative people that treated me terribly.
so it's almost
It
like
was awful. It was
they
beyond
became
awful.
the voices became the bully in your mind.
They were, yeah, they
Yeah.
were, and for a number of years. Yeah.
Mm. So skip to when you were 19 and you had this major accident that required that um, make get some medical intervention and get into some kind of rehab. um, how did that play out for you?
Well, it was scary. I went from living in a town of 12,000 people to living in downtown Calgary, and it was a real culture shock. Um, um, Walking to the rehabilitation center and like seeing drug needles everywhere,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that was at the start of the like opiate crisis, and so it was a real culture shock to go from a town of 12,000 to that. So
Hmm. So
yeah.
what was it that you said that you really kind of surprised your doctors when you said they didn't know you? What did you know about you that they didn't know at that time?
Well, I just had I don't know, it was weird. Like when I woke up from from my I was in a medical induced coma, and to reduce the swelling on my brain, and from the car accident, and brain injury, and when I woke up from that, it was like I was a different person. Like even before getting in the car accident, I was more driven, and I it's funny, like when you're in those situations, you can have one or two reactions. You can either like curl up in a ball and say poor me,"
Yeah.
or you can rise above and say, "I'm going to beat this with with some people's help. I'm going to win." And that was just the choice I made. Like and yeah, it was great too.
Hmm. So you said that you could make that decision to kind of curl up or make the decision to say, I'm gonna beat this. What kind
Yeah.
of help did you have at the time to get you
Well,
through that?
I was in a rehab hospital in Edmonton, and I also had a mother that was um, uh, a nurse as well, and uh, yeah, it's um, and but it was she was living in a different town than where the rehab hospital was, so a lot of it was done on my own. Like it was the longest I had ever been alone, or one of the longest times I had ever been alone out of the hometown that I was living in. I was there in this rehab hospital for like a month and a half. So when I
Mm,
was learning to walk again, so a lot of it I was just done on my own, and I changed who I wanted to be. I changed everything. Like I yeah.
So what did you change about where you wanted to go? It sounds like your goals changed, your vision for yourself changed.
Well, I was actually heading to yeah, I was I just I just wanted to get out of the small town that I was living in. It was nothing but like drugs and stuff like that, and I just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. I just saw my life going down a terrible road, and I just didn't want to be that for my life. So when I was in the yeah, like it was I didn't want that for me anymore.
So something really woke up in you about, this direction that accident, as tragic as that was, actually set you on a path that was going to be your own path and really productive and healthy by the sounds of it. That's what you were
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
towards.
yeah. Like uh, you only get so much. Not everyone gets a second chance at life to be the person that they want to be, and but in some ways we have that second chance every day. Every day we wake up, that we can get up and change who we want to be. If you don't like the way things are heading in your life, it's up to you to to change that. And there's no one can. The sad fact in life is there's not always someone to be your own personal cheerleader. Like you gotta grab the pom poms and cheer yourself on. Like it's a hard fact of life, but it's true.
So you are the creator in a lot of ways of your own future and your own life. You can't predict what's going to happen, but you can take charge.
Yeah, like you can't control everything, but you can control some things. So you just gotta do the part that you can, like and do that next right thing in your path, and keep putting one right foot in front of the other, or one right step in front of the other, and away you go. And then all of a sudden you look back and you've created a beautiful life for yourself. So
So you had this major physical challenge that you
mhm.
had to get through, and you literally had to learn to take those steps physically. What
Yeah.
about some of the other stuff that had been going on for you, the voices? Did that stop at that point, or what happened there?
No, with the car accident, the voices only intensified. It only got worse, and that's where one of my real struggles really was. Like they were relentless. I would hear like 24/7 all day long, and it was so uh, debilitating, because like you're trying to have a conversation with someone, and while at the same time as these voices are having a conversation with you, and like it was quite difficult, but um you know um like you persevere, and belief in the fact that there are going to be better days. And the thing was is like it's like anything in life. Like there are days where you're screaming and at the walls and you want to
Hmm.
cry, and you think you'll never get through, and then the next day is or the next week or whatever, all of a sudden something turns around and makes it like seem like it's all better. It's you just gotta have faith and hope, and hold on to that, because it will get better. You just got to keep putting yourself out there and trying.
So in that time, when you were facing these intense days of having these voices who were pretty negative by the sounds of it, that could overtake somebody. That could really, uh, help maybe cause someone to feel really helpless and maybe give up. Uh, you had the strength somewhere within you to counter some of that and to get through that.
Yeah, like that being said, I wanted to kill myself for after the car accident, every day for 10 years, a stretch, and belief, and like that I didn't want to have my young cousins know what it was like to have to deal with someone who suicided. You know, like it's my love for them got me through a lot of the hardship, because I just didn't want to do that to my family.
Mm-hmm. So it was
And that
less
being
the
said, go ahead.
it was less the concern for you, although, you know, when you couldn't really do something for yourself, you were able to do it for the people that you cared about.
Yeah,
And that kept you going during that difficult time.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So how did you start to get some help? You were 19 when you had the accident. You said there was 10 years of difficulty, like emotional, and I don't know if the physical difficulty as well. What were some of the things and people, places, and things maybe perhaps that helped to pull you through?
Well, like a lot of it, I kept it all inside myself, because my father also has schizophrenia, um, 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 and I I just didn't want to. I was under the impression that I would have been put in a what do you call it, a mental health facility, and that was
Mm,
such a fear of mine that I kept it all to myself, and I told no one. I did it
right.
all, and up until the point where I had the like I was in a really bad way, and my wife knew I. Uh, my wife knew I didn't want to go to the hospital or whatever, so she found Manitoba Schizophrenia Society,
Okay.
and I went down to Manitoba Schizophrenia Society, and met a wonderful woman, Jane Burby, who has since retired. Donna Hornick is now in that position now. She's equally wonderful, and
Hmm.
yeah, and she got me in contact with Matthew Sarvett, who has since moved on to other jobs in mental health. But he was running a group called the Voice Hearers Group, and like gave me a lot of techniques to combat my schizophrenia, but like up until that point, I had kept it all in on my own, and some and my wife looked up some of the techniques, and I went to the doctor as well, I changed my medication, as well as I some of my voices. I heard awful voices of my family members being horrifically awful to me, and so I confronted them. That was one of the techniques that in that's taught in the Voice Hearers group, is you do some reality testing. And so
Okay.
what I did was I asked my aunt, is she saying these awful things to me? And like I confronted her actually, and she said with tears streaming down her face, I would never say those things to you, and just absolutely bawling. And I knew at that point that what the voices were saying wasn't true, and it was all just a big lie and delusion that they had me believing. And so I systematically uh, realized, like, so if this is all delusion, like, what are they're basing on? It was all the voices were based on what do you call it, insecurities I had, that
So they're
and
magnified in a way.
for me it was, it's different for each person that's a voice here, but for me it was insecurities that I had, or anxieties that I had, and the voices in a lot of ways became voices of that. So I wasn't just having feeling like I was stupid. I would have someone that I cared about saying I was stupid, and so it
And it's
hurt
very
that much
real
more.
to you
Oh,
in that way. You actually see, hear, and feel.
I never saw any visions or
Okay.
anything like that. It was
Yeah.
all auditory for me at the time. Like I said, I haven't heard voices for over 4 years since
Yeah.
I combated this. But like yeah, it's so they became this voice to these insecurities, and so
I just
it
want to
would
come
be
back to something, Matt. I don't mean to interrupt you,
sure.
but you said something earlier that I think was really significant. It was the reality check, and the reality check of going to your aunt and asking her, do you say these things? Are you saying these things about me? And she, someone who cares about you, was really adamant that no, she would never say those things. It sounds like that was a real wake up call, that that was an
Yeah,
awakening that helped to turn things around for you, and the realization that these weren't true and real, that they are,
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
my impression as you're talking.
because up until that point, because I kept it all to myself, and I believed that there was no one was going to help me, and if I told anyone, they would lock me up in the what do you call it, the psych ward. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing is stigma, you know, that it can be so debilitating. Like if people like myself feel like they can never talk to anyone, and feel that they can never have any help, like it's so debilitating, because you know that's when the voices take just hammer on you, because then they own you, like you've
And
got nowhere to help, and
and
that's
I want
when
to just
really
come
bad
back to
things
that.
happen.
So the stigma can
Mm.
be worse than the actual uh, problem or condition, uh, because you keep it a secret. So stigma causes a person to internalize, to blame themselves, it sounds like.
Well, that's the worst thing, and I noticed with my group members, like when they first come, and that a lot of them have never been able to talk to anyone about the voices they heard, are hearing, or visions, or whatever it may be for them, or delusions, or clouded thinking, whatever. Um, and yeah, it's so liberating to go to a room, a place like Manitoba Schizophrenia Society, where you know, you don't feel like you're crazy, you know, because, and that's the hardest part, is like how do you help someone who feels like they have no one to be helped, you know, and they nowhere to turn, you know, they're just gonna progress and become worse. So that's why places like Manitoba Schizophrenia Society and groups like myself I run, and as well as the other ones that are run in the through our doors and in other places like CMHA and everywhere, you know, are so key, because you know, with that help, to get that, let that see the light of day and the truth of day, you know, you can be you can set people free, you know, like and from this awful thing, you know.
So it
So
sounds like places like Manitoba Schizophrenia Society, the Voice Hearers Group, other mental health places like CMHA, they destigmatize, uh, separating the condition from the person and treating you like a human being with nothing to be ashamed of. Whereas in the
well,
wider world, there can be such awful stereotypes of somebody who hears voices or who's been diagnosed with psychosis or schizophrenia.
well, that's the thing, like you know, Hollywood and media portray people with schizophrenia as all a bunch of homicidal killers and stuff like that. I'm a writer, and I would love to write a movie or a story that shows really what it's like, you know, and you know, because it's different for so many people, and because you know, they're all wonderful people. The people in my group are like just the sweetest people, and you would never know what they were dealing with as a person or anything until they say. And that's the thing, like if they're keeping these things to themselves, like it's not fair to have them have to deal with that alone. And that's why mental health and is such a important thing to have for our society, to help these people deal with these things and get this out, so of their minds, so they can have it see the light of day, and finally be helped with it, you know. So
So I have a question, because you've
Sure.
described a process, you know, this awakening to this reality, that you needed to take some steps on your own, that you were the one that you could look at what you had control over and what you didn't have control over, and you were able to take charge of what you did have control over. Those seem to be really crucial sort of in anybody's recovery process, is to be able to recognize where you do have capacity to make changes, however small those might be.
Mhm.
So, how would you describe your recovery process? Like, what were the things that have been most important? Some people talk about medication as being one of the things that helped them. Maybe some people feel that's the whole bag of what helped them, but I suspect that's not the whole thing for you.
No, I don't think any one thing is a magic bullet. I always found that my own personal view is that medication, where it may set people free and they may never hear anything, for me was always a thing that just kind of took the edge off, and it made it so the voices didn't hear. I heard didn't hurt me as much, like what they were saying as much. But like people are always looking for that magic bullet, that does it. Is it either black or is it white? And I think it's like Forrest Gump says, maybe it's a bit of both,
Yeah.
like, like it's whatever works for that person. And there's so many different ways to deal with this problem, and find your own truth, but go out there and keep trying until you find and make that recovery, because it is possible. My father heard voices too, and he's not hearing voices anymore either. So if two of us in the same family can do it, I'm not saying that I have the magic answer that everyone cannot hear voices anymore. There's many people that would never want to leave their voices, and you think of them as a positive experience.
Okay.
Like Eleanor Longton is one who went on to get her PhD, and she's helping people in the voice hearers movement. Look at her videos on YouTube, and her recovery story and stuff. She's amazing, and there's many different ways to do this, and just she looks at the voices as helping her out through her life, and
So it's possible to turn it around and embrace rather than resist, to embrace and learn from.
I think that's one of the main things that I did too. Is another one of the techniques taught in the voice hearers group is believing the opposite to be true. And like for me, with I heard all these negative voices just trashing me and saying I'm stupid and worthless and never gonna make it anywhere in life, and never gonna be a writer, and never gonna make a dime as a writer, and believing the opposite to be true. And like it became so liberating, because 90% of the time it is true. Like it's all your own insecurity that you think you're not good enough that's holding you back. And so anytime my voice is the tell me but I believe the opposite, I'd say, yeah, you know what, you're right, I am pretty smart. And it became empowering. It was crazy.
Hmm.
And like just and then after a while I just said, well, to them, because I knew it was a delusion at that point that I was hearing, and I just said, you realize you're not real. And they went away, and I haven't heard them for 4 years.
So you really developed a dialogue with your voices,
yeah, like I just
or you learned to
um
dialogue with them, to talk to them, to kind of that befriending, and then realizing that it's actually the opposite. If they say something bad, you can counter it with, yeah, you know what, I'm pretty cool, I'm pretty
yeah.
good, this is a good thing.
And when you stop fighting, it's like you need a positive, and like it's like if you're not fighting with them anymore, and that doesn't mean to roll over, and if they're telling you to do things and stuff, like commanding voices and to hurt people, like don't do it, obviously. Like you'll be the one left holding the bag, not the voices. If someone does get hurt, I always tell that to anybody. but like you don't have to fight with them, and that's what they want, is that negative energy of the fight. And if you just stop saying and just say, I am smart, and they got it, really messes with them because they don't know what to do. So
yeah, it's almost like you're tricking that side of wherever that's coming from, of the brain or the part of yourself or whatever that is,
yeah,
where they
like
emanate
now
from.
that like whatever it is, or wherever it comes from. I don't claim to know what starts schizophrenia, but yeah, they just don't know what to do.
You mentioned this Eleanor Longren, is that her name?
Longden,
Longden.
ELENORLONGDEN.
Okay.
Longden. Yeah, she's
And she's
amazing.
somebody that has embraced the fact that she's a voice hearer,
For
and
sure.
she's used that as part of her life and her recovery. So I guess my question to you would be, does a person have to get rid of the voices to have a full life and a recovery?
No.
Or no? Okay, because I think that's pretty important for people to realize, right?
No, and Eleanor Longden doesn't, and there's many others that have routine. It's finding a positive, like a life that's positive for you, that means like positively to you. Like, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time finding the words, but like covering a meaningful recovery for you.
Right.
Like whatever that may be, whether it's like not being able to go outside and be in a group of people without being scared, to go to family functions and not be scared or overwhelmed, or get a job, or if that's what your goals are. It's about what it means to you, and um, it's many different things that it can be. It does, and I don't in my groups think that or tell anyone that one, I'm gonna make them so they don't hear voices anymore,
Right. So I was just going to say,
or
the goal of the group is not to make people stop hearing voices.
no. It's about trying to have them have a meaningful life to them.
Okay.
And that's how I see it.
Yeah. So you being somebody that's been where that has subsided for you.
Okay.
So Matt, one of the things that I know about you, and I found this out and was quite delighted, is that you write children's stories.
I do. It's
Yeah.
my and I've actually written a movie too, as well, as about a lady with a mental illness, and yeah, no, these children's books are one of my favorite things ever.
Well, it's wonderful because here your creativity has got the opportunity to flow. If you were in the depths of despair, I think it's kind of difficult if a person is isolated, feeling ashamed, keeping secret. It's really hard for your creativity to really expand in those kind of circumstances. But that's part of what you're living out of right now too, is your ability to give back to the community, to do good works, to write, and to have this full life. Um, so is your creativity, is your writing, do you think that's a component of your recovery?
Now, well, that's one of the first few things that I did that gave me a real sense of pride, and because after my car accident, my language and speech part side of my brain didn't what do you call it, wasn't affected, and as much anyways, and so my wife suggested I go to school, and and what do you call it? I was trying to apply to the Red River and U of W Joint Communications CRECOM program,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was wanting to get into a job of advertising, because or
Okay.
doing copywriting or whatever, because I'm a pretty funny individual, eh? And so I wanted to do that sort of thing. And as a part of getting into the program, we had to do what do you call it, a portfolio. And my wife has this niece who was 3 years old at the time, and she was about to see Santa Claus. So I was trying to tell to her parents to try and make her make strange in front of Santa and be all weirded out and be a handful, because I'm a terrible person like that.
It's getting some funny stuff going on at her expense.
Yeah. So I told her that Santa farts, and so she'd be sitting on his lap the whole time, worried he was gonna fart. And so after that, every time that I saw my niece, she would wiggle her butt and say, "Santa farts, Santa farts." And then my wife, as a part of the entrance to this CRECOM program at Red River and U of W, said, "Why don't you write the story, Santa Farts?" And I did. And I sat down and did the rough draft in a matter of, I don't know, a half an hour, 45 minutes. And it is the stuff of legend in my family now.
Yeah.
Like I just got a text the other day from my sister-in-law saying her husband was reading Santa Farts to her daughter, and this has been, and it was originally wrote about Tia going to visit the North Pole and this farting Santa, and when she was 3, and like she's now 16 now, and she's had several more kids, so they're still reading these books years later
It
to their
almost
other
sounds like
kids.
a Robert Munch kind of story. Do you know Robert Munch?
Yeah, oh, for sure,
Yeah, and he
yeah,
suffered
no.
from depression, very deep
And
depression.
schizophrenia as well,
Oh,
and
really?
he's one of my heroes, actually, because he is a children's book writer, and he also has schizophrenia. So yeah,
That is something I didn't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Wow,
Yeah, it's amazing.
that's really something, and which would maybe, that quirky imagination of
Maybe.
his, of yours, like
Yeah,
who knows, the
yeah.
gift, there's a gift in there, for
Well,
that.
they say people that are I've heard lore that says voice hearers are like operating on a genius level. I don't know if I'm a genius, but I'm
Maybe
close.
aspects. You're close, yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No,
So
no.
just
But
yeah, so I'm just winding down here, and just wanted to ask you, I was just going to ask you, do you have any heroes or heroines that people that have inspired you along the way, or a
um,
person?
um, yeah. Heroes and heroines. For first and foremost, voice hearers and people who are recovering from drug and alcohol abuse, and in recovery for that, as well as people with brain injury, and single moms, like those people that get out there and they grind, and they're fighting it every day to try and make their life better. They're my heroes. I've got nothing but respect for those people. It's not
Mm.
an easy road, for sure.
And
But
for both
go
of
ahead.
those people that hear voices, a single mom, your mother was a single mother, it sounds like,
For
and
sure.
she did a
Yeah.
pretty darn good job.
Thank you. I take some credit. I take some credit for
You
that.
got some credit too, but we'll give her credit where it's due as well.
Sure. Uh,
So
yeah, and go
yeah,
ahead.
any final words, Matt? I'm going to let you fill in any gaps that we've missed.
Well, I wanted to say that my voice has always told me that I was never. The doctors always told me that I would never walk again. The people have said that I would never, after my brain injury, be able to have a wife or have a family and have a child or go to university or hold down a job, and that I'd never go to university or hold down a job. And I did all of those things. Like you gotta, and I have a 4.35 GPA at university that I graduated with. So that's straight A pluses. I only had one A, and an A was my lowest mark. And you know, the people will tell you that all the things that you can't do, but if you believe in your heart that you can do it, you put your feet one ahead of the other, and you sure enough you can do it. Just when all those people say you can't, just dig deep and do it. That being said, you know, you're not going to be able to jump to the moon if you try, but you know, but many things like me, if I would have laid down and said that when people told me that I'd never be able to walk again, and just sat in that wheelchair and accepted it, you know, my life would have been nothing compared to what it is now. And you can do it. You can recover. Recovery is possible. You know, like it's
So I
believe in
think
yourself.
you've really shown that if you were to live by other people's beliefs and by the stigma that's out there, your life would be very constricted and small compared
Well, for
to,
sure.
compared to what it's
Yeah.
become. Yeah.
My own. Yeah. I won't go into that. Never mind. Yeah. If you believe in that sort of stuff, you know, don't limit yourself. You can do it if you try hard enough. You can, like, just get up there, and there is recovery. You can find a way to make these voices or whatever, find a way to deal with them so you can have a great life. You know, I'm nothing special, I tell you. I'm not. I'm no hero. I'm no god. I'm no nothing. I just tried, and I didn't give up. Don't give up.
Okay.
You know.
So how do people reach you, Matt, if they want to find out more about your Hearing Voices groups?
Call him, leave a message on right now because of the COVID-19 outbreak. We're working remotely, and so if you call and leave a message on my machine at 786-1616, that's the MSS number, and my extension number is 2225, and just leave me a message and I'll get back to you.
Okay. Well, thank you very
Okay.
much, Matt. It was really informative and really inspiring. And
Okay.
yeah, thank you for being with us. And have a great day. And we'll look
You
forward
too.
to talking to you again sometime.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Bye.
Bye.